And now I'd like to call upon Shahla Daneshfar to take the mic as the first speaker. Shahla Daneshfar is the spokesperson for Freedom Now, Campaign to Free Jailed Workers in Iran. And she has spent several decades fighting for workers' rights and women's rights in Iran. She is a political activist and a well-known figure in the workers' movement in Iran. We are delighted to have Shahla with us. The mic's yours, Shahla. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody, and welcome. As the spokesperson of Freedom Now, I thank you very much for accepting our invitation and participating in this conference. Sorry, I speak in Farsi because I would like to address directly the workers in Iran. این کنفرانس صدای اعتراض شما کارگران پروژه پیمانی اعتصابی نفت که نزدیک 3 ماه علیه بساط چپاولگرانه پیمانکاران و قوانین برده‌وار مناطق ویژه اقتصادی در اعتصابید. شما که به سقوط هر روزه سطح معیشتتون، به وضع اسفناک شرایط کارتون، به قراردادهای برده‌وار موقت کاری و به امنیتی بودن فضای مراکز نفتی اعتراض دارید. کنفرانس حمایت قاطع خود رو از شما کارگران اعتصابی نفت اعلام میکنه. این کنفرانس صدای شما کارگران نیشکر هفت‌تپه است که 5 سال در اعتراضید. شما که با مبارزه جانانتون اسدبگی رو بیرون کردید و مطالبه امروزتون اداره این شرکت تحت نظارت شورایی و قدم به قدم پایه‌های شوراتون رو گذاشتید و نظارت شورایی رو دارید اجرا میکنید. این کنفرانس در این حال صدای اعتراض همه مردم علیه سرکوبگری های حکومت، علیه اعدام هاست، علیه زندان و شلاق و صدای اسماعیل گرامی، معلم بازنشسته‌ای که به خاطر شرکت در تجمعات اعتراضی علیه فقر و بی‌تأمینی به 5 سال حبس و 74 ضرب شلاق محکوم شد. کنفرانس بر ممنوعیت مجازات اسلامی شلاق و اعدام تاکید داره. هک شدن دوربین‌های مداربسته زندان اوین و انتشار ویدئوهای اون سند دیگری از جنایات رژیم تو زندان هاست. شکنجه و جنایت در زندان ها سیاست همیشگی حکومت اسلامیه. از جمله ستار بهشتی و شاهرخ زمانی از چهره‌های شناخته شده کارگری رو در زندان کشتن. کیفرخواست اسماعیل بخشی از کارگران نیشکر هفت‌تپه رو داشتیم و امروز هم سپیده قلیان، این دختر جسور زندانی، در نوشته تحت عنوان اینجا آخر دنیاست از وضع زنان زندانی در گوشه و شکنجه در زندان میگه. این کنفرانس صدای اعتراض علیه شکنجه و زندان و صدای کارگران زندانی، معلمان دربند و همه زندانیان سیاسی و بر آزادی بدون قید شرط تمامی زندانیان سیاسی تاکید داره. نوید افکاری به خاطر شرکت در خیزش مردمی اعدام شد و امروز سالگرد اعدام اون هست. 2 برادر اون هنوز در زندانن و وحید با همون جرم 25 سال حکم زندان و 2 سال تبعید گرفته. این کنفرانس صدای مادران دادخواه علیه چندین دهه جنایات حکومته. این کنفرانس صدای اعتراض مردم خوزستانه که حکومت به اعتراض اونها رو به خاطر بی‌آبی با گلوله پاسخ داد و تعداد کشته شدن، 10 نفر بازداشت شدن که هنوز شماری در زندانن. جا داره در این کنفرانس همبستگیمون رو با مردم افغانستان اعلام کنیم. در نتیجه توطئه جهانی و ساخت پاخت آمریکا، طالبان دوباره به این کشور بازگشت و داره قتل و جنایت میکنه تا مستقر بشه. این کنفرانس صدای اعتراض مردم علیه کشتار جمعی در برابر بیماری مرگبار کرونا است. مردم خامنه‌ای و کل حاکمیت را عامل این کشتار میدونن. با فتوای اون واکسن وارد نشد و واکسیناسیون مردم انجام نگرفت و به جای پیشگیری و درمان مردم رو به خرافه و شفای الهی حواله دادن. مردم گرسنه و بی‌تأمین ناگزیر بکارن. زندانها دایره، جامعه محروم به کام مرگ رها شده و حکومت خودش باعث شیوع بیماری شده و از قبل صنعت کرونا پولهای کلانی به جیب زدن و بالاخره این کنفرانس تأکیدی دیگه بر بایکوت جهانی جمهوری اسلامی به خاطر همه این جنایاته. امروز بحث بر سر محاکمه سران حکومت به خاطر کشتار آبان و یا بررسی کشتار تابستان 67 روی میز آمده. این صدا انعکاس جهانی پیدا کرده. از عفو بین الملل تا سازمان ملل و نهادهای مختلف دارن از نقض حقوق بشر در ایران صحبت میکنن. ما میگیم گزارش کافی نیست. جمهوری اسلامی رو بایکوت کنید. سفارتخونه های اون رو ببندید. از تمام مراجع جهانی از جمله سازمان جهانی کار ILO اخراجش کنید. متشکرم.
Thank you very much for that, Shahla. I'll just give a translation of what Shahla said right now. Shahla said, greetings and welcome to all of you who have participated in this online conference of Freedom Now, campaign to free jailed workers in Iran. As the spokesperson of Freedom Now, I thank you very much for accepting our invitation and participating in this conference. The conference is the voice of striking oil workers who have been on strike since about 3 months ago against the rip-off by employers and contractors and the slavery laws of the special economic zones where employers' hands are left open for the harshest exploitation. The oil workers are protesting against skyrocketing prices and declining living standards, against job insecurity and temporary employment contracts, against delays in paying wages. They are protesting against layoffs, against the deplorable state of the camps and food and health in the workplace, against the police atmosphere of their workplaces. They are demanding 20 working days and 10 days off as a key demand so that they can breathe due to the heavy work pressure. And today one of their demands is mass vaccination against the mass murder by COVID-19 pandemic. The conference declares its strongest support for the oil workers. This conference is also the voice of Haftabe sugarcane workers who have been protesting for 5 years and managed to oust Asad Begi, the owner of the factory, and his mafia gang with a fierce struggle. But his dismissal should be a prelude to the fulfillment of their other demands. They are still protesting, and an important demand of theirs is the management of the company to come under the supervision of the factory's workers' council so that they no longer face problems such as delayed payments and risks to the survival of the company and other problems. This conference is also the voice of all the people protesting against the government's repression. Ismail Gerami is a retired teacher who was arrested for participating in protest rallies against poverty, misery, discrimination, and inequalities, and he was sentenced to 5 years in prison and 74 lashes. The conference emphasizes the prohibition of flogging, this brutal Islamic punishment, as well as the prohibition of the death penalty. Following the hacking of CCTV cameras in Evin prison in Tehran by a group of hackers and the release of videos from inside the prison, the world has now obtained undeniable evidence of torture and inhuman and violent treatment of prisoners in the prisons of the Islamic regime. In response to the film's release, Amnesty International called on the Islamic Republic to allow the UN Special Representative to visit Iranian prisons. The inhumane treatment of prisoners in the prisons of the Islamic Republic is not accidental and is organized and has lasted for more than 40 years. They killed a young worker called Sattar Beheshti under torture. Shahrukh Zamani, another well-known worker, was killed in prison. And today, Sepide Gholian, who is in prison for supporting the Haftepe sugarcane workers, speaks of torture inside the prisons. Freedom Now has issued a joint statement with the Committee to Free Political Prisoners in Iran and the International Committee Against Executions, in which we urge international human rights organizations not to be indifferent to these reports. Using international laws, the Islamic Republic and the perpetrators of these inhumane acts should be prosecuted. These documents in the hands of any decent prosecutor in the countries in the West can be sufficient evidence to open a crime file against the Islamic Republic and its prison guards. Today's conference is the voice of protest of imprisoned workers, imprisoned teachers, and all political prisoners, and it stresses the closure of the security files of all political prisoners and their unconditional release. This conference is the voice of protest of the people of Khuzestan, who took to the streets due to the water cut in the scorching heat of summer, and the government responded to them with bullets. As a result, a number of protesters were killed and dozens were detained. A number of detainees are still in prison. This conference is the voice of the Mothers for Justice for victims of November 1998 and decades of government crimes, and victims such as Navid Afkari. Navid Afkari was arrested in 2017 and was executed for participating in a popular uprising. And now his brother Wahid has been sentenced to 25 years in prison, and his third brother is under same pressures in jail for the same and trumped up charges. As a result of US and global conspiracy, these days Taliban have returned to power in Afghanistan and are committing killings and crimes in order to consolidate their power. And one end of these conspiracies is the Islamic regime in Iran, the regime of Islamic terrorism in the region. This conference expresses its solidarity with the people of Afghanistan. This conference is a voice of protest against the mass murder of the people of Iran by the deadly disease of COVID-19, and the finger of the people as the perpetrators of this crime is pointed to Khamenei and the whole regime. Khamenei, who opposed the import of coronavirus, the COVID vaccine, a government that has referred people to superstition and divine healing, and has already pocketed large sums of money in the COVID industry. And we see people in the workplaces, in prisons, in barracks, and in the community without any equipment to deal with COVID-19. They have been left without their livelihood to die. In these dangerous circumstances, the government held its absurd general election and invited the people to participate, but it was boycotted massively. This conference is another emphasis on the global boycott of the Islamic Republic for all these crimes, and specifically emphasizes the closure of its embassies in all countries and the expulsion of this government from all international bodies, including the International Labour Organization. Thank you very much, Shahla, for that.